Welcome to Little Saigon, Clarendon. This is the story of a neighborhood in transition and the people that made it their home for a time. On April 30th, 1975, following America's drawdown from the Vietnam War, Saigon fell to the communists, starting a mass exodus of refugees fleeing to many corners of the world. One of the largest contingents settled here in Clarendon. This is their story, told in their own voices. Chapter 5, Reflections on Little Saigon.
I think this is basically just an economic issue. You know, when you do not have a lot of money, you could only afford temporary kind of arrangement. There's almost no Vietnamese who are rich enough to compete with the American establishment, because after all, they're a much larger organization. They're well endowed. And they have, to be very honest, they have connections too. You know, so when they have to compete with that, then people with a lot of connection with banks, connection with things like that, they put them in such favorable position that you have no chance. Yeah.
The people that I know and talk to were sort of thought it was a little sad, but sort of, fatalistically thought this is what happens, when you have development and money come in. The Vietnamese were attracted by it's like artists move into rundown areas because the rents are cheap, and they create communities, and it's good, and then that catches on, and they eventually get driven out because everybody wants to be there. That's kind of what happened, I think, to Little Saigon. They were responsible in large part for sort of igniting the economic redevelopment of those 4 or 5 blocks in Clarendon.
They're also the first, when we think of it, sort of the modern diversity of the community really starts there too, because up until that point, and even at that point, Arlington didn't think of itself. It wasn't an international community. It didn't think of itself that way.
They felt that it was very sad that there was no longer, we, the ones that had helped set up Clarendon, felt this sadness that it's like we're losing the country the second time. Some place that were meaningful to us. First location that we were, the first community that we were together as a community in America is gone. That was very sad for somebody who just lost their country, not too long before that.
That was a transition. So I think that period after Metro opened, the period of the 80s and 90s, where there was a tremendous explosion in new residents from all over the world. And, the Vietnamese population that came in the 70s was sort of the vanguard of that.
We sort of lived almost side by side in the same area. And then it was, I think, later, when we had kids and our kids were going to the same schools and things like that, we began to be more, friendly, or not friendly, but just to have relationships that exceeded just sort of a client-customers sort of business owner relationship.
I think that Arlington was a relatively welcoming community. It's only been a decade before that they'd integrated the schools in Virginia, and Arlington had been the first place in Virginia to integrate schools. So, in that sense, I think it was an open place. On the other hand, it wasn't a place that knew anything about what it meant to have, people coming in from different cultures and different languages and all that sort of thing. So how to learn.
What the beginnings and the development and the sort of flourishing of Little Saigon, a lot of what it was for me was understanding that culture and recognizing that they're just like us. They're people like us who came here and just wanted to work and have families and grow up and live here. And they were forced out of their country, but they came here and they created a community here that was really good.
I miss all the people that are gone already. Those were the ones that put the first brick on our house in America. And they're the one that introduced the egg rolls, the chazar, the sweet rice, the all the pho, all the dishes, that now we take for granted and eventually will be integrated into the American cuisine. So I miss those people.
Trying to assimilate. We thought by eating and talking and doing the walk, you're an American.
So it's nice to see how Arlington has transformed. So much has evolved from, to me, it was just old buildings and warehouses to, the Vietnamese immigrant gathering there, and then the metro, and then how it's so hip and so wonderful now.
Emotionally, I think people still talk about it because, that's like the first pocket of gathering for the Vietnamese American. But do we really miss it? I don't think so, because I think that was a turbulent time for a lot of us, a lot of trauma. So I think it's an evolution. I think now that with the children, grow up and we move on to do different things, I think it's we look it back, but I think we miss it. But I don't think we really sad to see it gone.
This is the final storefront marker for Little Saigon Clarendon, but it is not the end of the story. To learn more or get in touch, visit littlesaigonclarendon.com. Tell us your thoughts or recollections on Twitter with the hashtag Little Saigon Clarendon.